Hello everyone, welcome back. We're now going to take a look at the creation process for the OTL and the recursive system that we're going to use to fracture the geometry. And overall we have two states. We either have original mesh that we're going to fracture for the first time, or a pre-fractured mesh where we're going to loop over each group or each piece individually, and for that we need an attribute that we can use for each loop, and we're going to loop over and fracture, and then we can embed another node and say, okay, now I want you to loop over this attribute, and that's how we're going to set up the multi-layer fracturing. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a group node just to have something, and I'm going to convert this into a subnet, and then let's rename this recursive fracture. Right click, create digital asset. I'm going to remove that from the name, hit accept, and I'm going to say the inputs and max and minimum is set to 1, pardon me, and hit apply. And now we have the node. You can see the lock is open. That means we can dive inside and edit. So what we need is we need to add the fracture, what we created previously. So let me open another Houdini session and restore that file. Okay, so I'm going to copy this section here because I want the volume as well, and we're going to paste this inside the node, and I'm going to call this rest because that's what I'm used to, and that's what the attribute really is. And let's restore the position from rest. Now if we run this, it's going to fracture the geometry. And I'm going to create a quick two nodes here to generate the color for the geometry. So let's put the I'm going to use a connectivity node, not this, and I'm going to use a color node and generate a random from the class attribute, and it's a primitive attribute. Let's make sure that delete is on. So this guy I'm gonna group into subnet. I'm gonna call this color pieces because I don't like too much how the new one works. So this way we can easily debug the levels that we want. And then for the fracture, what we're going to do next, what we're going to need is an attribute that we can use for each loop, because this works great if it's the first time, but if we want to do this again, I'm copying the node here. If we want to do this again, we're not going to be able to do that. Okay, it's not going to work. We have to tell it how it can loop over each piece. So let's dive inside this guy and create a for each loop. And we're going to call it, we're going to use a for each named primitive, and I'm going to connect that here. And this time we're going to loop over each one of these guys, and the volume we're going to generate once. We're not going to generate per piece. And let's see here, actually let's do this. Yeah, I'm going to keep this, and then for each one of these guys we're going to use the same volume. Okay, sorry, this scatter here is the same whether it's one piece or not. So now we're going to do this, and let's copy this guy and put it here. And for each loop, it should have a name attribute after the this is the first time, so there is no name attribute, and I'm going to copy this node and set this here so that we have a first fracture and we have a name attribute, and then here this guy is now going to be able to work. Okay, let's see what's happening. Sometimes it's just a matter of refreshing the node. Okay, so I have the points, we have the fracture, everything's working. Let's hit reset and let's go up. And again, sometimes it just, this guy doesn't like to behave properly, so I deleted it. I'm gonna create a for each named pieces, and this is my input here, and that's gonna go into this guy, and then this is my output, and now it's going to work. Cool. So this is the second node, the second fracturing, and as you can see it's working as well. So what we need to do is we need to either have this path, okay, either have this path where it's the first time, or have this path where it's the recursive one. So we're going to just set a switch system and say if it's the level 1 or if it's a second level. So I'm going to use a switch here, and this node is combined between the two, is the same between the two, so I'm going to delete it here and I'm going to put it afterwards. Okay, now for the switch, for this guy, I'm going to go up and right click on this node, say type properties, and go into parameters, and let's dive inside. Actually no, sorry, I'm gonna right click, select this node and go edit parameter interface, and I'm gonna dive inside. I'm gonna drag and drop this. So here I'm gonna call this switch, just switch. Okay, and let's use the switch. So if it's 0, it's going to be the base or the first time fracture. If it's not 0, then it's going to use this. And I don't like this hinting with 0 and 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go under the menu tab and say use menu, and I'm gonna say okay, first or base fracture, and this is going to be equal to 0, and then this is secondary or more, and this is going to be equal to 1. So here if we go up now, it's going to give us either the switch or this. Okay, and this is going to this is going to switch between the two objects, the two nodes. And let me set this, let me save the node, so save node type, and that should change this as well. Did not, so let me delete that, copy and paste this, and here I'm gonna say it's 0, so it's the first time fracture. Okay, and let's take a look at these guys. Okay, and then this is the second time, the second fracture. Okay, so let's dive inside here and change the number of points to 100, which is a bit high, but it's fine. Okay, so we have one fracture. Let me copy this. So that's my level 1, and that's my level 2. And now pretty much the system is done. We can continue on adding these nodes over and over as much as we want. So the next thing I want to do is we have I want a way to be able to track the levels. I want to, after I get the mesh, I want to be able to say, okay, how are these shapes are grouped. I want to say, okay, give me everything that is level 1, give me everything that is level 2. I want to loop over these guys. So I want to implement that feature, and which will help with the naming attribute as well. And I think that's pretty much it here. We're going to continue in the next video adding more features to this. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in a bit.